You are very welcome to today's webinar hosted by GS1 Ireland in association with our gold partners, TrueCommerce. I am delighted to have Andrew Robothan with us from TrueCommerce, who is going to talk to us about interactive product substitutions through an add-in for your EDI. So without further ado, Andrew, I'll hand over to you.
Okay, thanks, Maria. Good morning, everyone. Okay, so today's session, we're going to look at interactive EDI. So we're all fully aware of e-commerce and the benefits that e-commerce delivers. Obviously, it's a very fast-growing sector at the moment, but EDI is still a fundamental kind of component of how we trade with our customers. So what we're looking at is that interchange and how we can harness the e-commerce benefits and apply those to the EDI world so that you can see and achieve similar growth levels from that traditional kind of sales channel. So before we start looking at the kind of how we achieve that through EDI, it's probably worth kind of reminding ourselves of the growth levels that we're currently seeing in the e-commerce space and what the benefits would be if we can transfer those growth patterns to EDI. So if we look at this slide, we can see that in the UK alone, B2B e-commerce sales are expected to grow quite dramatically. They're currently at 159 billion and expected to grow to 188 billion by the year after next. In European terms, we're looking at 1.73 trillion euros in terms of that total market space. And again, B2C e-commerce has always been kind of the sector that's had a lot of interest over the years. What's really interesting here now is to see that B2B e-commerce is actually exceeding B2C. So you can see there, you're looking at 2.3 trillion for B2C and 7.7 trillion for B2B. So clearly, from a business to business perspective, the e-commerce and online transactions are now firmly kind of in pole position there, with B2B transactions almost kind of tripling the level of B2C. We've actually got some more in-depth stats as well. So you can see here we've got 11.9% growth expected. So that's looking at last year's growth right through to 2025, where that 11.9% year-on-year growth is expected to continue. So again, that's a really kind of encouraging number. And what that means for all the businesses is if you're harnessing that growth, obviously you're experiencing revenue growth online, but also some massive cost savings as well in terms of moving more of your transactions to the online world. The second graph here is really interesting as well because it shows you what types of industries are actually leading the march in terms of that B2B growth. So the first column there is businesses that are selling spare parts. You can see there that's a traditionally strong sector for online sales. But what is interesting here on this slide is you can see as we step down this graph and move across to the right, complex products is the second kind of biggest sector for B2B. And what's interesting about that is, not so many years ago, lots of businesses would say their products were too complex to sell in any other way other than as a face-to-face sell. So to see complex products, and you can see configure to order products now featuring very highly in the top kind of 5 industries within B2B, just demonstrates that literally every business, every industry is suited to online sales, whether that's e-commerce or EDI. You shouldn't be put off from kind of moving your sales channels to the online world. So in terms of businesses that we see right now, what does their B2B landscape look like? So B2B can take many forms. So, and it's all about kind of how the customer wants to interact with you. So this is typically what we see in across our clients at the moment. So if we start at the top there, you can see the green e-commerce box. I don't think that needs any explanation. That's pretty self-explanatory. We've probably all got an e-commerce facility that some of our customers are transacting through at the moment. Punch out is a special type of e-commerce where it allows us to integrate into our clients' finance systems, and it avoids any kind of rekeying, and there's lots of cost savings and benefits there. We actually did a previous webinar on Punch Out, which you can find on the GS1 website if you're interested in learning a bit more about Punch Out. But generally it's used for goods not for resale transactions, where there's a human kind of element of choice and decision making in the purchase. Then we move down to the third kind of B2B sales channel, EDI. So again, which is the main topic of conversation today. So again, we've got a large percentage of our B2B transactions come through that channel, which is kind of non-interactive in that the customer generates an order file, sometimes automatically from their systems, and then that comes through to the supplier for fulfillment. And then below that we have PDF conversion. So those customers that are not really kind of using electronic ordering as we would see it may generate an order file out of their system and email you a PDF document with a list of what they want. So some customers have adopted conversion processes where that's automatically converted into an electronic order, whereas other customers, that just goes to the sales team and somebody's actually reading that document and rekeying it into the ERP system so it can be fulfilled. And then finally then, for the customers that are doing none of the above and still want to use the most traditional kind of sales channel, they'll pick up the phone, call somebody in the telesales department and actually talk through their order, and again that'll be rekeyed into the ERP system. So that's probably the most labor intensive of all of those mechanisms. So businesses that have seen the greatest levels of growth are the ones with the most mature strategies. So the ones that have kind of looked at their systems and worked out where they can gain benefits and where they can offer better customer service through technology. So in this diagram compared to the last one, the first thing that you'll notice is instead of having 3 different solutions for e-commerce, that's been rationalized into one. So e-commerce, punch out, telesales, all that can be done through the same solution. So again, that simplifies the integration then in terms of all of those 3 channels coming through the same process. Similarly, EDI then exists on its own, and PDF. But all of those feed into a single integration point then back into the ERP system. So there's clearly some cost savings and benefits there by rationalizing those systems and indeed the integration between those systems. But what if we could leverage the e-commerce solution a bit more in terms of that EDI experience and give them an interactive experience? So that's really where the next big gain is, the next big benefit for businesses. So rather than thinking of EDI as a kind of a black box and something that's, you just get an order file in and that's processed without any interaction, what can we do to that EDI process that really takes it to the next level and gives those EDI customers some benefits, and also gives the supplier the benefit of being able to maybe upsell and cross-sell to those customers, which you can't do at the moment through the traditional EDI model. So what we're looking at is interconnecting that EDI channel into the e-commerce world. So that those customers ordering on EDI can actually get some of those benefits and see that rich kind of e-commerce environment, and allows you to actually get in front of that customer and steer the purchasing decisions. So next generation kind of processes will be achieved by integrating all of the sales channels. You can see here on this diagram, we have EDI fully integrated with e-commerce, and similarly the PDF process integrated into that e-commerce. So e-commerce can become the hub and the standard kind of interface that all of those customers can use if they wish. So with current supply chain issues, I think we're all experiencing disruption in the supply chain. It's fair to say that, EDI, in good times, most of the transactions that were coming through your EDI processes were fully automated in that you could fulfill the majority of the order lines and you wouldn't have to touch those. So it'd be a no-touch experience and you'd have massive efficiency gains on those EDI orders. But now with supply chain problems being quite prevalent, it's fair to say that probably each of those EDI orders that's coming in, if it contains goods that maybe you don't manufacture and you're reliant on other suppliers for, you're probably going to have a number of shortages on those order lines. And instead of it being fully automated, you're going to have to contact that customer and talk them through those kind of substitutions or back order lead times that are going to be on those order lines. So it's suddenly become less automated and less efficient than it used to be. But if we look at EDI, what we can actually do is, if you imagine you had an EDI order for 100 lines and 10 of those lines couldn't be fulfilled, the 90 lines that can be fulfilled flow straight through as you would normally expect with EDI. The 10 order lines that have problems, they can be automatically routed into the e-commerce solution, and the customer receives an email prompting them that 10 order lines need manual intervention. They click on that email link, that takes them straight into an e-commerce basket with just the 10 lines on that need attention. And it then gives you the opportunity to show them alternative products, so the customer can look at the specifications and all of the information about that product to help guide their decision. They can see the back order if they want to maintain it as a back order. They can see what the expected date is for that item coming back into stock as well. So all of a sudden, rather than you having to phone that customer back or email them and have a conversation, it means that your customer can come in and they can actually self-serve and work through those shortages on their own time. That's convenient for them, and it means that your sales team aren't always having to follow up each order to deal with those issues. So you save a lot of time and money in dealing with those transactions, and similarly the customer has a better experience, and it just means you can capture all of their revenue without them going off to another supplier and possibly checking to see if somebody else can fulfill those demands. So one of the key things there in that last slide at the bottom was kind of the integration of the systems. But to integrate your systems and achieve that kind of singular presentation to your customers, there's a heavy reliance there on data. So it's not possible to achieve that unless your data is also following and moving in the same direction as your solutions. So to consolidate and be ready to trade with your customers in a flexible way on their terms means you have to have the data organized accordingly. So instead of having a siloed approach to product data, which is what we typically see at the moment in businesses, where companies will maintain a separate version of product data for the EDI systems, they'll have another version of data for e-commerce, and they might have another version of data for trading through punch out. So where you need to move to is actually having a single master data record for each of your products, which supports all of those different methods of trading. So regardless of how the customer wants to interact with you, your product record is complete, fully qualified and ready for any of those trading mechanisms. So coming back to why we're looking at making EDI interactive, it's all about giving the customer a better experience, but also growing your revenue. So your EDI sales channel can be relatively static in that you can't influence the customer's decisions. You can't get them to buy new products necessarily, and you can't cross-sell and upsell to them. So if we look at revenue growth, typically in B2B e-commerce, by adopting those systems, you'll see a 14% growth in revenue from those customers. So if we can harness that growth in revenue and apply that to your EDI customers, clearly there's a huge benefit there to companies and a big return on investment for doing this. So what we would typically see then in e-commerce and again what you will see in EDI is that you will get an increase in your average order value. You'll see a decrease in the order processing costs. Again, those two things coupled together will obviously give you an increase in profit. Your order fulfillment rates will increase because, in the example I mentioned earlier, where maybe 10 out of 100 order lines couldn't be fulfilled automatically, by offering those alternatives and substitutions and allowing the customer to see what other products you have that could fulfill that requirement. It just means you're harnessing all of that, all of those order lines without them going elsewhere. And it also means customer satisfaction will increase because you've got a massive convenience factor in that if the customer can do this at a time that suits them, then that's really a big benefit to them as well. So if we move on to the next slide. So in terms of time to value, you might look at all of this and think, how do we actually get there, from where we are at the moment? So right now, you're probably, your business structure, your sales channels will look something like diagram A there, where you've got lots of separate systems, lots of separate integrations, and you're maintaining and juggling all of those different sales channels. So, and again, you'll have lots of different relationships with different suppliers who are providing you with the different tools managing those channels. So where do we need to be? Well, to maximize our potential and the growth opportunity, we need to be configured more like option B, where we've consolidated and simplified the architecture. The quicker we can reach our maximum potential and get to the kind of architecture of diagram B, the greater the benefits are for our businesses, and removing that complexity will also massively streamline your IT operation and allow you to become more agile and adapt quicker to the constantly changing landscape that we see out there at the moment. So how do we get from A to B? What does that look like? So you can see here, there are a couple of different ways we could achieve this. So if you look at the first graph there, we could look at integrating, so maintaining the separate systems that we have in place at the moment, working with the different vendors of those solutions to obtain that interoperability between those different platforms. So, and typically, that can be achieved, but you're probably looking at around 24 months to actually integrate all of those different systems and bring them together to achieve those growth benefits. The alternative approach is you could go out and look at replacing those solutions and consolidating it that way. Obviously, there'd be a cost to doing that, but it does mean that your timeline to achieving the kind of position where you need to be massively reduces. So you could achieve that in as little as 6 months if you take that approach. Obviously, in addition to the solution re-architecture, you probably also need to look at re-architecting your data as well. So again, moving your different sources of data into a singular master data source. So products like PIMs, product information managers, things like that would be really useful in allowing you to create that single version of truth for your products as well. like I say, whichever option you take, you'll get there, but it depends how quickly you need to get there in order to get those benefits flowing through to your bottom line as soon as possible. So just to kind of cover off who we are, so we're a global business, so the content that you see here in the presentation today, that's created from our knowledge of working with a vast number of different customers around the world, across the UK and Europe especially. So you can see there, we actually have 160,000 interconnected companies that we handle through our different solutions, with 18,000 customers globally as well. So it does mean we've got the benefit of actually monitoring and seeing how customers are transacting, and it allows us to advise on what the future looks like and how we get those benefits through to all of the businesses who supply in a B2B fashion. So Maria, if I could hand back to you, I think we've got some time for some questions if any have been raised.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Andrew. Yes, a couple of questions have come in, so we'll work through those now. And again, if anybody even has questions now at this stage, do just pop them in the message box and we'll come to them. First one is, and it's coming back to your point there about stock shortages. One of our listeners is losing money on his EDI orders at the moment. So how would a solution like this help improve, I suppose, the profitability on EDI orders?
Okay, yeah, so I think that's the problem we've seen across a number of our customers, where some of those order lines that can't be fulfilled immediately, they're just dropping off basically, so they're losing a percentage of revenue due to those supply chain issues. So that's precisely the kind of problem we're trying to address here, and by routing those shortages into the customer's e-commerce system, it does just mean that suddenly there's a solution to that problem, and even if you can't fulfill the precise requirement that the customer has, then I think most people will have alternatives. And by setting up those relationships, between products, it does mean you can be quite sophisticated in suggesting, really good alternative product options for the ones that were requested. And it just means that people are quite likely to, just accept those suggestions, those substitutions, and it means that you're going to capture that full value of revenue. But ideally, we'd like to see businesses actually increasing the revenue. So rather than a decrease in revenue, taking an approach like this should hopefully allow you to actually raise that revenue level even higher. So totally change the direction of what you're seeing at the moment.
Yeah, I think that was the one thing that struck me, is that whole opportunity to sort of cross-sell and upsell and make sure you're getting the maximum value out of every order.
Yeah, exactly. And I think people are use a mix of transaction types, and everybody's used to e-commerce, whether they use it for some of their B2B orders or even if they just use it in their kind of private life to buy in a B2C capacity. Everybody's used to the kind of user experience and the benefits, and I think just kind of given that as an option on those EDI orders just brings it more to life, and kind of gives it that user experience that people are used to.
Yeah, and as you said, I think it's just that it's raising the visibility of those products in the system, that it's not just whatever the predefined list of products that are approved for purchase that somebody might see in their EDI system is a great opportunity to sell more.
Yeah,
we've another question here from someone who obviously at the moment is phoning back their customers when there's an order issue or a supply shortage, and then the order is obviously stuck on hold until that's resolved, and they're finding that very inefficient and taking up a lot of time on the sales side, which again obviously is costly. So would a solution like this help in that situation?
Yeah, definitely. And that's the other thing we've spotted as well is, from the buyer's side of it, I think, they find the process kind of quite frustrating, because quite often they'll get a call back immediately they've sent the order through. You know, they're on other calls and dealing with other issues in their business, so that's not always convenient, and they're becoming kind of frustrated and reticent to send the order through because they know it's generally going to end up in a callback, which they don't want. So and you know, from the supplier's perspective, it's time consuming because if you're phoning back the customer immediately, they're busy, they're not taking your call, you have to remember to phone them back again, you know, and it could take multiple attempts before you find the time where the customer's actually available to discuss the problems with you. So you know, you can save a massive amount of time and frustration taking this approach, because that customer just gets an automated email, and obviously, you know, once they're free, they can click into that and self-serve without your involvement. And again, it just means they can do that at a time that's suitable for them, and it just frees everybody up and takes some of the kind of anxiety out of the ordering process that a lot of people are seeing at the moment.
Very good. And I suppose finally then, and it's quite a broad question, how much do you know, how much time do businesses spend actually trying to identify and resolve stock shortage and supply chain issues? So you know, that whole issue of looking at your different channels, seeing where orders are being fulfilled, not fulfilled. You know, as I think we've touched on there, the cost of following up with orders that aren't, you know, just simple and straight. Do you have any idea of how much time some of your customers are spending trying to fix the problems?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. We don't have an actual percentage in terms of that, or you know, kind of what that is in actual terms, but I think it's fair to say, you know, all of our customers will tell us, you know, we don't know how much time is being spent, but we know it's a growing amount of time, because the sales team are, you know, kind of not getting through their other activities that they used to get through. So, and you know, whilst they haven't got a firm kind of handle on it, they just know it's a growing problem, and it's affecting the kind of output of the sales team or the customer service team. So, and it's really that's driven us to look at how we can help those customers better and look for innovative solutions that allow them to get around these problems. And the ones that are adopting these techniques and methods instantly seeing benefits, and those sales people are freed up straight away, and you know, kind of much more efficient and able to be more proactive as well. Because I think that's the big thing. You know, the salesperson needs to be proactive rather than reactive. And these problems that we see with supply chain and you know, things that are causing automation to fail, it just means that people are bogged down doing kind of more admin and follow-up tasks rather than being proactive and out there selling more and helping the business.
Mm-hmm. And then I suppose finally, just to touch on that, you know, if anybody is interested in getting started, I suppose how quickly, and I know you touched on it a bit there in your last slide, so you know, realistically, if somebody wanted to tackle this problem and get started, how long would it take them to get up and running and get this plugin added on?
Yeah, so you know, it depends what systems are in place at the moment, and you know, but you know, if people are kind of doing EDI and you know, they wanted to bolt this on, then this can be achieved in, you know, again, as little as 6 months, and they could be, you know, seeing some of the benefits here, and again, offering those improvements to the customer service side of things, as well as the revenue improvements as well. So yeah, it's a relatively quick timeline, and you know, if we could get, you know, 14% growth on the EDI orders, you know, the return on investment is really quick, and you know, it can really turn EDI into, you know, kind of a growing revenue stream, and bring it into line with the growth that's been seen on the e-commerce sales channels at the moment.
Brilliant. I suppose, yeah, it'll be interesting as we head towards this year's peak season to see how all these different channels perform, and people might be making decisions about what they need to upgrade and change ahead of peak season next year. Andrew,
Absolutely.
many thanks. Really appreciate your time and your expertise. The contact details for TrueCommerce are there on the screen if anybody wants to reach out or follow up with us directly in GS1 Ireland, and we'd be more than happy to point you in the direction or answer any questions you might have about EDI and EDI standards, or touching specifically on the data quality element if you need, I suppose, help getting your data in order to take on a project like that. So thank you very much, and we will look forward to talking to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.